Hey, 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 I think we are live. Excellent. And apologies. I seem to have set the wrong start time for this event. But in any case, it is time to get going. We're going to be talking about budgets today. Love talking about budgets in all sorts of ways. And going for the next few sessions, trainings, if you will, I want to be talking about various frameworks that I have learned over the years that have helped me think through challenging situations, problems, and setting strategic goals. So today I want to talk about the jobs to be done framework. And in that context, I also want to answer a question that was sent to me about budgets. So let's start with the question. The question was, isn't your budget supposed to be your best and informed guesstimate for the revenue and expenses for the year to come and not supposed to be adjusted as the year proceeds? Otherwise, how would your budget versus actuals reporting be accurate or helpful? Okay, so the jobs to be done framework is really pretty straightforward. It says that any process or tool that we use, we're kind of hiring them to do a job, which I like to call get a result. So, what are we hiring our budgets to do, right? What is the result that we want our budgets to accomplish? I'll let you think about that for a moment while I give some jobs to be done examples. So, for example, refrigerators are a box of cold air. We don't hire them to be cold in that jobs to be done terminology. We hire them to keep our food fresh, right? To keep it fresh longer. That's the job we hire our refrigerators to do. So, what job are we hiring our budget to do? I think there are a few things that people have thought of over the years. That there is a way to have accountability in spending, right? To know that we aren't spending more, sending more cash out the door than we can afford, right? Oftentimes when we think about budgets, we think about affordability. But I have to ask myself, is your budget the best tool for knowing if you can afford something? And I would say in often cases when we're thinking about affording something, we're really thinking about cash flow, in which case the tools we should hire for the job about whether or not we can afford something are tools like our statement of cash flows, a cash flow projection that goes into the future, and a question about if we spend this money, how much money is it going to bring back? And how quickly is it going to bring that money back so we can make sure that we have enough cash to cover that expense until the money comes back. So a budget isn't really a good tool to do the job of answering, can we afford it? In the case of this question about, well, what are we learning from comparing our guess to our actuals? What are we hiring that process for, of comparing our budget to our actuals? Well, the job that comparing our budget, our best guess of our expenses and income to our actuals is doing is telling us how good our guess was when we wrote the budget. Is that really useful? Do you go around asking yourself as a nonprofit leader or board member, how good was our guess when we wrote our budget? I don't know about you, but to me, like, that's not really useful information other than that if we continually are making horrifically wrong guesses, then whoever's doing our financial planning is potentially not qualified, right? So if we wanted to see if our financial planning person or team was doing a good job, then maybe we would want a tool that gets the job done of telling us how accurate our guesses are. So what else might a budget do for us? And why should we not update it? To me, the job as a nonprofit leader that I often want done is to plan that we are spending enough expenses in the right place to bring in the money that we need, right? If we're talking about financial planning, and we do want to think about too spending money to bring in an impact, then what do I want? What tool, what process do I want to be in place to answer that question? Are we spending money in the right places in order to get us the money that we need to make the impact we want and to have the biggest impact for the amount of money we spend? And the third thing that I want to know is, are we spending the money in the places that give us enough money back, right? That's allowing us to have enough money. You have to spend money to make money, right? You have to exert energy to get that return. So that being said, let's re-envision, I'll call it the budget, but our primary financial tool. And I have a budget template that I use to be thinking about this. What's important? Not important that we keep it the same anymore because the world is changing. We learn new information all the time. So why shouldn't we update our plan when new relevant information comes in that changes what we're going to do? So to me, it's okay to be changing the plan when new information comes in. So let's think about what needs to be in this budget or financial tool. I want to see some mission metrics mixed with money, or as I like to call them, dollarized, right? So I'd like to know for a given period of time, maybe over the last 12 months, or over the last 6 months, or over the last 3 years, year by year, how much did it cost us to serve a person per day? Let's say we serve people every day, right? How much does it cost to serve a person in a certain amount of way? Maybe we feed people, right? So let's say we feed people every week. We feed them 1 meal a day for a week. How much does it cost us to feed a person for a week? And then we can start to compare, right? Well, last year it cost us $50 to feed a person for a week. This year it's costing us $100 to feed a person for a week. Now, that's a tool that allows us to ask some questions. Why, right? Is the cost of eggs, right, went up? Maybe. In which case, that's out of our control. Everyone's going to understand. Now we have a great case for raising more money. Or did we start doing something differently that maybe wasn't very efficient? So let's explore those things. Now we have a tool that is allowing us to ask better questions about how we're spending our money. Another thing I'd like to know from my budget is how much of our budget is being invested into revenue generation, right? Oftentimes that's fundraising. And then how much fundraising is coming in. And then I want to see the percentage, right? What is that return on investment for our revenue generating activities, right? Are we doubling the amount of money we put in? Are we tripling it? Are we quadrupling it? Are we not even doubling? Maybe we're less than that. And I'd like to be then asking the question, is that good? How does that compare to last year? How does that compare to what other people are able to do if we have something similar we can benchmark to? If we know that number, if we know that we have a system already where we put $1 in and we get $5 out, why wouldn't we put more dollars in, right? So that tells me if we want more money, we already know how to do it. We already know how to get a $5 return for every dollar we put in. Let's put more money in there, right? It tells me where to spend to get more money. Another thing I'd like from my budget is to tell me impact. right? So let's just go back to that story. We already know, and it's a true story, a conversation I had the other week, a nonprofit, they feed people, and it costs them, I believe, $2 per person per meal. And they have a scalable system, and then they know their system can scale. So all they need is, they don't need to work on reducing the cost to feed somebody. They have a good cost and a good system. They don't need to work on increasing their ability to feed more. They have excess capacity. They just need the money, right? So now they have a great case for support to go out and say, hey, we have the systems in place. We have a great cost per result in place. We just need you to fuel that machine, right? Let's put some dollars, let's put some $2 bills in that feeding machine and feed more people. Wouldn't you like to be a part of that? So there's their case for support to bring in the money to make the added impact. So these are the kinds of questions and answers that I would like to be getting from my primary budget or financial answers tool. I don't love the word budget. I'll tell you one final trick that I like to do is, when I put together budgets for nonprofits, I like to put first the revenue that comes in for a program that would only come in because that program exists. So these would be things like fees to participants, fees because you have participants. So let's say you get insurance reimbursement, restricted grants that are only for that program, things like that. Any other, maybe the program helps put on a fundraiser, but anybody could be putting on that fundraiser, then we don't count that revenue just for that program. So we take that direct program revenue, and we subtract out the direct program expenses, and then we can see, is each program a revenue generator or not? It's okay if they're not. We're nonprofits, right? That's not our primary concern, but we need to know which programs. So if we're tight on money, but we also want to scale our impact, then we should scale our programs that are also revenue generators, right? That more than cover their own costs. Then I want to see your overall capacity expenses. So those are expenses that just go to running the whole thing, that are not really divided up specifically per program. So if you didn't have the program, you'd still have the expense, right? So let's say you have 10 programs, you lose one, you're still going to have an executive director who's full-time, right? So then we're going to see those expenses. Those are the staff expenses for leading overall, coordinating, staff development, those kinds of things. Then you're going to get a bottom line. That's going to be the true cost of running your organization. Below that bottom line that we're all used to jumping to is where I put the fundraising income and fundraising expenses. And then we can look at that bottom line below that to see is our fundraising income after its own expenses, is that covering the rest of the expenses for the organization? And I do this because too many times I've seen people just go right to that bottom line, and then they fix it by just kind of saying, well, we're just going to bring in more money, but we haven't actually added more expenses to how we're going to bring in more money. And it gets people away from just kind of perseverating on that bottom line in a meaningless way. So, quick takeaways here. You do not, in my opinion, need to worry too much about your budget to actuals, because that's a measurement of how good your guess is. If you are a very well-established, very stable organization that isn't particularly shrinking or particularly growing, then you probably have very predictable revenue and expenses, in which case tracking your actuals to your budget month over month can help tell you if you're on track, if you're repeating a predictable plan that is likely to happen again. That makes sense. It's a good measurement. It's not like a measurement that helps you grow or deal with a sudden change, but it is a good measurement If you are like a steady train of a nonprofit, to know if you are just steadily running on the same track you've been running on for years. That's fine. But there's all these other really important questions we need to be thinking about. If you are an organization that is growing, if you're an organization that is shrinking, if you're an organization that is experiencing change in your programming or in your funding, then you need to be much more focused on a financial plan that delivers the revenue that you need and the impact that you would like to generate and the maximum amount of impact for the revenue that you have. I'll wrap it up there. If you'd like to be developing your budgets with me, that's one of my favorite things to do in the Thrive program. All my wonderful Thrive clients, present and past. I love working with each one of you so much. If you want to be part of that, you can go to pivotground.com/application. Fill out a short application, just tells me a little bit about you. Then you'll be able to schedule a call with me, and we will see if you are a good fit for that. Until next time, all the best.